Right, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to start the meeting. This is the regular meeting of the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, September 26, 2019. We are joined up on the dais by Leslie Hervey, who is sitting in for Jackie Piedignotto as the clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. To my right is Commissioner Todd Portune. To my left is the Vice President of the Commission, Stephanie Sumero-Dumas. To her left is Jeff Aluda, the County Administrator, and Legal Counsel is to the far left, Michael Friedman. We will start the meeting with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand if you can. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to move that we approve of the minutes of the previous session.
Second.
Commissioner Dreeben?
Yes?
Commissioner Sumero-Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you. We have one presentation today, and it's related to a proclamation in recognition of National Kinship Care Month. And I know we've got some folks here from JFS. We as a board, all three of us are signatories, are declaring September 2019 as Kinship Care Month in all of Hamilton County. And we've done quite a bit of work related to kinship care in the county. And so I wanted Moira to come up and talk just a little bit about that work. All of it made possible by the voters and the taxpayers who allowed for an increase in the Children's Services Levy, which allowed us to expand the work that we're doing on kinship care. And for those that are not as familiar, kin care is when a child is not safely or no longer safe at home and needs to be removed from the home. And instead of that child going into the foster care system immediately, JFS is aggressively looking for relatives that can care for that child and take them in, hopefully on a temporary basis. It's much better for the child, it's stabilizing for the family, and it's in turn better for the community. So we are currently offering stipends to incentivize kinship care in Hamilton County. It's far cheaper to have children go into kin settings as opposed to foster settings, and so it is an efficiency item, but it's also better for kids and better for families. And so Moira, if you could just talk a little bit about that, and then we'd like to offer the proclamation to you.
Yes, no, thank you, because it was the board that approved this plan, so thank you very much. So currently we have 509 children through the kinship stipend program, and that's roughly 307 families, and what that means is every child that we have custody of that we are able to place with a kin, they get a stipend of $350 per child, and for as long as the child stays with that kinship caregiver, and even if the child moves to another kinship caregiver within the family system, that stipend would follow them. So it's been a huge benefit for our families. We also be able to, again, because you all, with the levy, are able to do additional services with the families. We wrap services around to help them with beds and things like that if it's an emergent need and the children are coming tonight. However, we can help stabilize that. And then we're also maximizing through the PRC program, which again you all approved, are expanding that, any additional services when folks meet the TANF requirements. So we currently are about 42% of our children that we have custody are with kinship caregivers. So we have really been aggressive in doing that. So it's, and as you mentioned, and as the board has always said, it's much better for our families and our children if they can remain with their kin. So thank you for that.
How does that 40% relate to the rest of the state?
So we're actually right now doing better than most of the other counties. So we're grateful for this opportunity to serve our families, and it's actually even better than the national average right now. Mm-hmm. So it was really incredibly helpful when you all approved the stipend.
Well, and to your work, and congratulations to
you. The
team
has done a really good job.
And the team at JFS that have made this a reality. So very grateful for that. So any comments or questions from the Commission?
Yes, Madam President. And so currently, and I'm happy about the stipend, of course, as we all are. What percentage are actually getting the stipend now? I know it's just early in the game.
So, so we have on any given day about, I think it's 1,300 to 1,400 children in custody. Mm-hmm. So 509 children are getting it. So
receiving it now.
Yes.
Okay. And how did you advertise it?
So as soon as we Well, as soon as we built it into the levy plan, and then as soon as it was approved by the board, we made sure through, we sent out public information notices. And then whenever the workers know, so whenever we're working with families, we've really tried hard to make sure we're educating families in the community and community meetings. And then obviously, as soon as we have a meeting with the family, we talk about it with,
Awesome.
with the family. We have a family team meeting before we even venture down going to court. So we want to make sure people are aware of that.
Thank you so much.
Moira, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your overall personal as well as departmental support for what we, as commissioners, have discussed and knew was urgent to do around making money available to families who are stepping up and taking care of those that are in need, both adults as well as children. And so today we're really focused on children and what's being done through JFS. But I will tell you personally, in my own case, as an adult, that I am right now staying with family. Otherwise, I'd have to be in some kind of an extended care facility to handle all of my needs. And not only is it much more cost efficient for that to happen, but when it's your family that's directly involved, it's so much better. And it truly is one of those instances of grace where goodwill is working through others in stepping up and stepping forward to help out those that are unable to completely take care of or care for themselves. And so by extension, my own personal experience, what we're doing here with respect to the work of JFS and foster care versus kinship care. Kinship care is the path to take in all instances if possible, but there are a lot of expenses that are related to that care, and if our ability to provide that kind of a stipend is very much needed throughout the county. So this has been a great overall team effort, including all the taxpayers of Hamilton County who are part of this team.
Yeah.
So are any other counties in the state providing the stipend?
I don't believe so, but I don't want to misspeak. I don't know of any other counties, but
Okay.
I think we were one of the front runners in actually doing a stipend consistently with children that were in care with
Right.
kinship. They offer supports, but I think they're varying degrees. But really, this stipend, as the Commissioner Portune said, is really critical for families. Particularly, we often seek grandparents to help who are on a fixed income, or ask families that already have 4 or 5 children if they could take additional children in. And that's 3 or 4 other children to feed could be a hardship for many families.
And a big shout out to the foster families also.
Yes.
Who are
Oh,
willing,
yes. Yes.
to provide that care. If we
Yes.
are unable to place a child with kin,
Yes.
then we definitely need the network of foster parents.
Yes, we have wonderful
who are
foster
making great
families.
sacrifices.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Do you want to introduce the members of your team in the back?
Sure. I have Dr. Nina Lewis is back there, and then Damia Kwande. So,
Very good. Thank you. All right, well, we're going to present you with a proclamation.
okay, thank you.
There you go. Congratulations. Sorry, I didn't read the whole thing. Congratulations. Thanks, Moira. Okay. We have one speaker's card. It is, I believe, it's not related to an agenda item. Am I correct? Yes, it is. Is it? All right. Oh, it's number 5. Is it number 5?
Right, 5.
Okay. All right, well then, unfortunately, Marilyn, that means I'm going to hold you for a minute until we get to that item. All right, with the deference of my colleagues, I'd like to move forward with a by-leave related to a topic that we had on our agenda at the last meeting about the headquarter hotel. So Jeff, if you would tee this up for us. We asked the administration to bring a resolution forward. They have done that, and I know Laura Brunner is also in the room with the Port Authority to lend some information as well. So.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is, as you indicated, per our conversation on Tuesday, we've continued to work on options for helping to facilitate headquarter hotel project in downtown Cincinnati. Before you is a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority I'll go into this in a bit. Just as a recap for those who may be watching at home for the first time, we have a private entity, Vanderkar Holdings, which has placed the Millennium Hotel under contract to purchase for $36 million. They've done so with the intent to assign that agreement to a public party in order to advance the development of a publicly owned headquarter hotel and possibly convention center expansion. There is an earnest money deadline that expires tomorrow on Friday, which requires $1.3 million to be allocated in order to keep the purchase sale agreement active. And that's hard money that would go down in order to extend the time all the way to closing, which at this point I believe would be in early February. Vanderkar is currently working with the Port Authority on assignment of the purchase sale agreement as allowed under that agreement. So the question before the county, and as the board discussed on Tuesday, is whether or not to assist with that $1.3 million earnest money as a grant to the port to keep that purchase sale agreement active. So if authorized, this would be from the county's transient occupancy tax residual fund, not from the county general fund. I just want to make that very clear. The resolution before you would authorize that payment contingent upon the port obtaining an assignment agreement from Vanderkar at terms consistent with advancing the project. And that assignment process is still ongoing to the minute, I believe. I just want to take a quick step back and note that there's been a lot of conversation about the headquarter hotel and strategies to address the headquarter hotel over the past several, I'd say months, but really years and going on a decade or more. And there's a lot of good individuals and good groups in the community that have different strategies about how to pursue this. But the thing that makes this such a rare opportunity is this is really the only opportunity before the community right now that gives us a path towards obtaining full control over that site and the future of the site. So our financial advisor, PFM, has performed some basic due diligence on the opportunity before us. They have now aligned with the Port Authority to continue that work. There's definitely more due diligence to do. There's financial due diligence, there's project management due diligence, underwriting due diligence. We need to look at the potential interactions between the hotel and the convention center, potential expansion, and how those two fit together in order to proceed with this, how our occupancy tax funds ultimately might be able to play a role in those options. But I'm confident as we proceed forward with the port that we're going to continue to get good advice on this as we move forward with the process. So just back to the resolution real quick. Again, this is an agreement that just allows for the allocation of a $1.3 million grant to the Port Authority in order to provide that earnest funding, again, contingent upon the approval of an assignment agreement between Vanderkar and the port, and the way that would work through the resolution before you is that the board would take action on the resolution. It would authorize the county administrator to make that payment, but not until the director of the Port Authority and I were able to confer and ensure that that assignment agreement has been entered into and that it's an agreement that we feel comfortable allows for the advancement of the project, at which point the assignment or the allocation would be made to meet that earnest money requirement. So I'm happy to answer any questions. As you said, Madam President, Laura Brunner with the Port Authority is here. Roger Friedman, counsel with the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office, who's been the lead counsel on the review of this opportunity for the county, is also here with us. But again, happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you. Laura, would you mind coming forward? I don't know if you have anything you would like to add.
Maybe I'll just state briefly, good afternoon, that it has been 2 weeks ago today that I got a letter jointly from the City of Cincinnati and the Hamilton County Administration asking the port to proceed with the due diligence required to fully vet this opportunity. So we've been very busy in the last 2 weeks. It's made this a very high priority and have a number of different pieces of the due diligence already underway. Jeff alluded to some of those. Have had productive conversations with Vanderkar, and I think that this is a good opportunity for us to fully vet this conservatively but aggressively to determine whether we make this happen.
Thank you. I have just a technical question related to the deadlines here. So there is a caveat in the resolution in front of us related to this agreement between the port and Vandekar. What is the time frame on that?
Well, it must happen before, so the payment, the 1.3 million, is due under the purchase and sale agreement 5 days after the end of due diligence. Due diligence ends tomorrow, so we're targeting next Thursday for that payment, as the deadline for that payment. So I'm waiting for something from Vandekar. I know his legal counsel is working on that. So as Jeff alluded to, it's very much real time here. I'm hoping to get it, very soon.
And you've been in conversations with them?
Yes,
though? Okay.
every day this week.
Okay. And just to back up just a second, we failed to mention that the need and the timing here is also related to the idea that we were not able to secure an additional extension, and so the 1.3 gets us, otherwise it just goes away. The deal's over, deal's done, we don't move forward. And so this earnest money allows us to move forward with the due diligence, assuming there's this agreement with Vandekar and the port, and then we can do the due diligence necessary to make sure that this is a good opportunity for the county, given that this has been identified by the county constituency as their number one priority when it comes to regional economic development. So that's kind of the framework that we're looking at here. Are there any comments or questions for either Jeff or Laura? Vice President Dumas.
Madam President, Jeff, I just want to clarify and make sure that the administration is recommending that we move forward on this.
Yes, I'm recommending advancement of the resolution with the contingency clause that enables us to ensure that there is an assignment provision or assignment agreement between Vandekar and the port that is still consistent with advancing the project.
Okay.
Correct.
And Madam President, I'm not sure, should my discussion points be done now or as we move toward the vote? Which one?
Now.
Okay, very good. Have several things I'd like to say. I heard Jeff say this is our only opportunity. It may be our only opportunity, but not our best opportunity. Maybe you've experienced before a private party and then transitioning to a public party to handle this process. I was just thinking that when you buy a house, you check the roof, the basement to make sure it's not leaking. When you buy a car, you check the tires and make sure the tires are good. Now, this due diligence, we keep saying it's 1.3 million, but actually it's 2.6 million because we have to pay another 1.3 at the end before we sign the agreement. So it is 2.6. I also want to say this facility, Millennium, the taxes that we get from the Millennium is approximately $538,296 a year. We will lose that. The value of this building, according to the auditor, is $7 million currently. So we are willing to agree to a project, a $36 million project, for a facility that's only worth $7 million, a facility that we're going to tear down. So we're basically paying for the land, $36 million for the land. I think this deal is the worst deal since I've been here. If it passes, I'm aware that I'm only one vote. But I believe the fact that they did not allow us to do our due diligence tells me that we need to wait for a better opportunity. And that I've said before on Tuesday, this will be, in my belief, 2.6 million going to a black hole, going nowhere. And so I think this is not a good decision for the residents, not a good decision for the county. And lastly, I want to say that I totally agree with economic development. So it has nothing to do with me not wanting economic development. We need the revenues. We need it for our county. We need it for the visitors that come in. But we need to make a good deal. We need to make a good decision for our residents. We need to make a good decision for our county, and I absolutely do not think this is a good deal. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Fortune?
Yes, Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the issue. First, I have a few questions before I offer comment, and then set forth what my final position is going to be on this. Jeff, this is to you and also to Holly Crispin, who's here, because she was doing a lot of the legwork on this, I know, as well. On Tuesday, I raised some questions about projected revenues generated and estimates pertaining to that if an 800-room hotel, state-of-the-art, first-class brand is built, but yet the occupancy that occurs after all of that takes place is only at approximately 75% of 600 rooms, which is the current number of rooms that are available under current circumstances, even though the current occupancy rate is even significantly less than that, because less than 75% of that number, because you've got the hotel itself is in such disrepair and is not able to be marketed or booked to the manner that any of us would like, not the county, not the port, I'm sure, not the Convention and Visitors Bureau or Convention Facilities Authority or any of those things. But what is that, as we look at this, what is that number, if we can, if we look at 75% of 600 rooms, and then, so what's that total number? And then what is the difference between that number and an average daily rate, let's say, of 75% of 800 rooms, which is a reasonable estimated outcome relative to this hotel. If we move forward with this, have the opportunity, build an 800-room hotel, and then you have that kind of average daily rate in play on an annual basis. Do you have those numbers handy?
So I have numbers handy.
All right.
I'll see if we can help get to where you're looking to go.
Great.
The answer you're looking for. So on a 600. Well, let me start with currently based upon 2018 information, the Millennium, which in its current form was producing approximately $670,000 worth of occupancy taxes.
Mm-hmm.
A 600.
What was that number again, Jeff?
Approximately 670,000
Okay.
of occupancy taxes. That's coming through to the county, so that would include the entire 6.5%
Right.
of occupancy tax. A 600-room hotel. Now, Commissioner, what I don't have in front of me is 75%, but we have apples to apples, 800 and 600 at 62%, which was a prior study that was done. And that number is at 1.67 million. So a 600-room hotel or 600-room key hotel at 62% occupancy would produce somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.67 million. Obviously, at 800 rooms, that number is going to be higher. It's around 2.2 million. In occupancy taxes. Again, that's at this full 6.5%, and I don't want to get too far inside baseball, but there's a 3.5% county occupancy tax, which goes towards payment of the Duke Energy Convention Center debt service,
Yep.
and there's another 3% which is collected, which goes directly to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So those are some apples to apples numbers in terms of what the Millennium is generating currently, what a 600-room hotel would generate at 62%, and what a hotel would generate at 62% occupancy at 800 rooms.
Okay. So 1.67 million and 2.2 million average
At
daily
60 at 60
collection at 60.
Or annual.
Yeah,
Correct.
annual.
Correct.
At 600 and 800 rooms. That's important because the number that you've calculated, even at just 600 rooms operational, exceeds the amount of earnest money that's being asked of us to contribute in terms of a down payment relative to this project. Now, as to the down payment, I understand that it is actually due 5 business days from tomorrow. Tomorrow's date meaning a notice of termination, a letter of, or notice of termination needs to emanate from the port, is that right, or from Vanderkar to Chairman Queck and
It's
the ownership operation?
It's the absence of a termination letter being delivered by Vanderkar
All right.
that
so-
would trigger it.
So that will trigger it?
Yes.
All right. And so we have to be, and the way this resolution is framed is that as this would operate, if we approve this resolution, there will be no notice of termination that will
Correct.
issue.
Correct.
And then the payment will have to be made on or before a week from today. Or at least
Subject-
that's
yes,
what's been
yes,
recommended.
subject to the
Subject
assignment.
to the condition, the assignment.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
The other, if I could, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but just to also, while the payment is due 5 business days from the close of the due diligence period, I think that, again, presuming the board moves forward with this, that there's every incentive to complete this as quickly as possible.
Right.
The Vanderkar has $250,000 in earnest money already into this, and my understanding is that those dollars go hard and would not be returned if, in fact, notice is not given to terminate the due diligence period. So I
Right.
think in order to be equitable to all parties involved, we want to try to make this decision on an assignment as quickly as we can, but obviously we need Vanderkar's assistance in doing that.
Right.
And I think they would be
He's got the-
incentivized to do it.
He's got the motivation, right?
Right.
Sure, sure. So they have, as we talked on Tuesday, they have skin in the game also.
Yes.
In this particular matter, not only the money they've spent on their own work and due diligence, but they have $250,000 of additional on top of 1.3
Correct.
earnest money that would be at risk here. For me, I guess, there's been some discussion about this being not our only opportunity, or may be our only opportunity, but not our best opportunity. I think the reality is that this is our only opportunity, and it's a great opportunity for the city, for the county, for the convention and visitors industry, from the standpoint of creating new jobs in the service industry, manufacturing and supply industry, building trades opportunities for several years ahead, other spin-off economic development activity that will be spawned not just by the building of a state-of-the-art, world-class brand, 800-room, or between 600 and 800, whatever it is decided to be done there, hotel, but also to have this linked with expansion of the Duke Energy Center under the same financing plan, the same funding approach, in essence, that was put in play for the original expansion of the Duke Center back in 2002, 2003. And I can speak in specific detail about all the aspects of that because I was the author of that plan, was able to persuade local elected leadership to sign off on board with that, as well as be a part of the consensus building process with the city of Cincinnati and with local state elected officials, all of which came together to generate the funds that were necessary, not just to expand the Duke Center, but under the agreement that we had, the essentials, which are still in place today and which will continue, it generated new money so that a second convention center could be expanded in the city of Sharonville when they were ready to do that, and they have since done that and are looking at another expansion again that will be funded under the same approach. Also additional investments into marketing of all of our area attractions, services, hotels, and the like through the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, Port Authority, Ready, all those groups, along with whatever we're able to do on our own too, in promoting economic development because of this vehicle. I will also add that this form of a tax, the transient occupancy tax, is in great respect for the large part paid for by visitors to our region. Just as any time any of us would go to another city and rent pay for a hotel, book a hotel, stay there, you pay whatever that city and state and county's local taxes are for all generally under the name of a hotel motel tax, if you will, supporting local economic activity. Well, when people from other out-of-town places come here, they do the same thing. And those are the folks that really are being taxed by this in connection with it. And I'm not saying exclusively, because I know there are local businesses that will do retreats at area hotels and use their ballrooms for annual events, to seminars, to retreats, as I already said, to other things that lead directly to their ability to grow and improve and the like. And so this being an expanded convention center and a new state-of-the-art hotel drives our economy in multiple ways. And that's why during the recession, when all of our other taxes were not growing, were flat, or were declining, the transient occupancy tax continued to grow. It was the only growth revenue source that we had during that critical time period, and it enabled us, us being Hamilton County and this region, to withstand the recession far better than other metropolitan areas did. It's not that we weren't hit by it, but the impact on us was less extreme than it was in other areas, and we need look no further than to this revenue source and those investments that were made in the convention center downtown, in the convention center in Sharonville, in the marketing and booking and tourism efforts, to see the reason why we had that increase in our local economy, why we were able to keep jobs and create new jobs, why we were able to do so many other things in a positive way at the height of the recession. And that has continued since. And so I think that experience, and having followed this very, very closely, leads me to the conclusion, to certainly a reasonable degree of certainty, that if we make this investment and if we build this hotel and if we expand our convention center, and they're all linked and they're all part of the process, we're going to have a repeat of what happened before, because we know today that we're not getting the business that we should be getting. We look at what Columbus is doing, Indianapolis is doing, Cleveland is doing, St. Louis, others are faced with or doing, and St. Louis is a good example because they're not doing this. They didn't do this. It's with the same group, and they have said what they will do here, and there is no reason to doubt them, and that is that they will mothball this property and either maintain it as it is in its current condition, or they will barricade it and board it up and hold it in a dormant state right in the heart of our downtown. And that's not a look any of us want to see, and that's what we're going to see for the foreseeable future if we don't do this, if we don't advance and approve this resolution. Are there risks? Sure, there's risks in everything. Are they reasonable risks? Are they risks that we have a reasonable belief based upon a multitude of other factors to believe that those risks will not come to pass? You bet. There are reasons, and there are reasons everywhere you look, based upon the last time we expanded the convention center under what was done with transient occupancy tax or TOT funds, and should have no reason to believe that we will not, no reasonable reason to believe that we will not experience the same kind of activity if we move forward with this. Laura, I have another question for you, if I may, one more, and that is this. So let's say that we make the payment, earnest money deposit, and then we move forward to closing. We actually close on the property. And for whatever reason, it becomes more difficult for us to build a new hotel under the current arrangement or other things. What will we still have in our hand that we don't have today as a consequence of closing on the property?
We would know that before closing. You know, what we will know as we proceed with due diligence is whether we have sufficient revenues to support, from the operations of the hotel, to support the bond issuance that will be required to build the hotel.
Right.
So, and that's going to be, obviously, we'll look at various variables.
And that bond issuance will repay us for our investment?
Yes.
Right.
And so let's say that 1 month out from that, in December, we say that won't work.
Yep.
What we will reconvene to discuss is whether we, in partnership, proceed to close on the purchase.
Right.
And then evaluate options.
Okay. And if we proceeded to close on the purchase, what would we own at that point that we don't have today?
The most significant blighted property in the CBD.
Yeah. And it would be ours to develop in whatever way we can develop it.
Yes.
And it's not only the most significantly blighted property, but it's also property that we want to have control over, do we not?
Yes, we do.
Because if we allow it to fall back into the complete control of the hands of the Singapore partnership, headed by Chairman Quek, and they proceed to do what they've said they will do, which there's no reason to think they won't, because they've done it elsewhere, in other places, then we will have, if we don't let that happen, because if that does happen, it'll stay blighted for however long, because they own it. They own it. And as long as they take care of minimum maintenance and avoid building code violations and that sort of thing, and/or force us into considering eminent domain, which will make this a far more expensive proposition than it is today, we will nonetheless then have control over this to develop in any one of a variety of different ways, and all much better than what we have today, and certainly far better than what we would have in the event that we balk at this opportunity and the chairman and his partners continue to hold control, sole control over this property.
I agree.
In the heart of downtown Cincinnati. Thank you, Laura, for the answers to those questions. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, having heard those questions and those answers and shared a lot of comment about the benefits that we have received in the past related to this funding stream and what it can do for the Duke Center downtown, what it has allowed us to do with respect to other economic development throughout Hamilton County. And I also want to add that it's not just marketing and keeping hotels alive. It's not just the expansion of convention centers, plural, in Hamilton County and the jobs created from that, but it has also generated a revenue stream that has allowed us to partner with a multitude of other jurisdictions in Hamilton County on economic development projects that have a tourism nexus, a visitors nexus, an event and attraction nexus, a convention nexus that not only we have benefited, but so too we, the county, in direct ways, but so too have many other jurisdictions in Hamilton County who have been party to new projects that were funded by our ability to leverage TOT funds generated through this process, this overall funding stream. So there's been so much other economic activity all throughout the county generated by this. I think that there is, I believe there is no option in front of us, but it's not that what's in front of us is nothing but bad in terms of opportunities or impact. But I see that our options moving forward, if we do this, are going to lead to much better good throughout all of Hamilton County and our recoupment of our investment through this earnest money payment that must be made within 5 business days from the absence of a notice of termination being issued. That said, Madam President, to make it very clear, if it's not already, I will support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple more comments,
Okay.
if I may, on this bad deal. The $1.3 million that we will give for earnest money, they will cash the check in 5 business days that we will never, ever get back. If we decide that in between that time, due diligence, that we want to move forward, then we'll give $1.3 million, hoping that they will follow through on what they're supposed to do. Couple just quick points is those people that are real positive about us following through on this, not our commissioners, they have no skin in the game. The city, the media, they're saying this is the best deal ever. Are we going to mess it up? And nobody's offering to give us any of the money for the earnest money. Not that we could accept it, but nobody has even offered. So they have no skin in the game. Lastly, this is the worst deal I have ever seen. $36 million for a plot of land. Where that number came from, I don't know. I wanted to add an additional number from the auditor's page. They're asking for $36 million, and it will be a plot of land because we're demolishing it. The market land value is 3.9. So I know they're including the hotel or whatever, but where did this crazy number come from? I just don't get it. And so because of that, I will not be supporting it.
Thank you. So I have been struggling with this a little bit, as everyone knows. But, you know, to my view of this, we have a business decision to make here. I do, you know, the history with this particular owner is troublesome. And so we have gotten near a deal with Chairman Queck a number of times, both the county and private developers, and it has never come to fruition because the other party has always pulled out. And, you know, this other party also owns properties in other cities where when he decides to no longer maintain the hotel, he simply puts up a chain link fence around it, and it is a blighted property for years on end then. And I'm very fearful that if we don't do this and provide the earnest money, that there will be similar consequences here in Cincinnati. And so the end goal here is to have a private developer in conjunction with the port develop a hotel in this space, a fantastic, premium flag convention center hotel, which is the top priority for the citizens in this county as they have identified themselves, because it allows us then to expand the convention center and move forward with other economic development in that area where we just cannot do that at this moment in time. And so the final deal, if the due diligence proves it out to be a good deal, and that's where Laura, you as the quarterback of the deal will provide us with that information, would end end up being a privately financed headquarter hotel where the county has not put any money in other than the earnest money, which we will recoup through the financing. And so that is the goal. That is the end game. If that were to not happen, and the due diligence does not prove out, and we decide that we don't want to invest in that deal, then to your point, Commissioner Portune, we still have control of that property, which we don't have today, and that is at the cost of the earnest money that we're putting forward. And I do think there's a significant benefit there. And so I am going to support this resolution, knowing that the caveat is also very important, wherein the port and the developer, through Vandekar, have to come to an agreement as to what the terms are before we can move forward with the earnest money. And so we've got a little bit of work to do, as you alluded to, and as the administrator alluded to. I'm hopeful that that will happen. I think we all expect that that will happen. But the money will not exchange hands until that does happen. And so with that, I will move. Administrator? Yep.
Just very quickly, just to make sure, so I think what we're talking about here, to make sure I've can clarify what I think I heard. The due diligence will be conducted by the Port Authority to provide an ultimate recommendation on whether or not to do the project as described by Vandekar, which is the issuance of hotel revenue bonds. I think what I heard you say, Madam President, just want to make sure we're clear on it, was that if in fact the due diligence does not prove that out, that at that point we still have the property under control. We have the ability to look at other options at that point, including the potential for just an outright purchase of the site using, again, occupancy tax dollars or other resources as they can be defined. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that if the due diligence turns out that it supports the project, we would move forward. It would be financed entirely on hotel revenue bonds. Our earnest dollars would be recouped. If in fact the due diligence does not support it, we still have the opportunity, but we wouldn't technically have it under control at that point. We would have control and the option to move forward on a purchase. We wouldn't have to,
right,
but we would have that option. So the real risk at this point is 1.3 million that we put forward, with the absolute worst case scenario being the county, the port, and the community decides to do nothing on this, in which case that is hard money that we would not get back. But if we did move forward with the project, we obviously would. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear in terms of how I described the project.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Could I just ask one question? You were saying our earnest money will be recouped?
Yes.
You just said that?
Yes.
At what point?
So the earnest money would be recouped if we move forward with the project.
We start making money? Go
No,
ahead,
so
Robert.
when we would issue the hotel revenue bonds,
Mm-hmm.
the hotel revenue bonds that would be issued would then take out we would have a choice,
Oh.
actually. We'd have a choice of leaving the occupancy tax in there as essentially a down payment, or the hotel revenue bond issuance could take that out. Laura,
Take it out.
any clarification on that? Okay, all right.
Madam President.
Take it out, okay.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Just one other thing after the clarification, and this may be understood by everyone. Let's say the due diligence says, no, don't go forward and build a headquarters hotel under these terms and conditions. But we will have then until the date of the next down payment to consider other options as well.
Correct.
Options including restructuring what the current deal is, or our agreement with the private developer that's involved in this, Vandekar, or anyone else who may have other ideas for this property downtown. But regardless of what form all of that takes, there are other options relative to this property.
Yeah, that's right.
Numerous others, I'm sure.
This payment is giving you options.
Correct. And so I'm sure that you're already looking at what those options would be
Well, that's a big
for this
payment.
site. Certainly have not explored them to the degree that you would be prepared to offer what that list is. But I would submit, and what's the date on that, Jeff? Is it 30 days before the closing, or when is next?
When the when the second 1.3 is due.
Yes, uh-huh.
It's actually tied to the point at which the warn notice would be provided to the state of Ohio
Okay.
regarding closing of the hotel. So I think it's 21 days before
21.
that. So we've been trying to do some math.
in the
as it relates to
December,
looking at the end of
January
the year,
time.
December or January.
Okay, all right. Do we have a closing date set yet?
The contract provides for, I think, a January 31st closing date.
It- that-
Okay.
Yeah.
It is, Roger? Okay, so,
So we're going to
no.
we're certainly going to accelerate our due diligence so we get
Sure.
as much information as soon as possible, so we're not
yeah.
running up to deadlines.
So based on that discussion, we would have at least a minimum of time until January 10th, and maybe longer, to have vetted some other options regarding this and to invite others to participate in that if they would. That's not our primary goal or objective. The primary goal or objective is to build a hotel that in turn will generate more TOT revenues, that in turn will benefit the convention industry, restaurants, service employees, et cetera, and other jurisdictions throughout all of Hamilton County. It's why this is such a top priority. It's not just about downtown, it's about economic
Region.
development all over Hamilton County and industries that support the kind of activity that is, and et cetera. But I don't have any doubt we're looking at, and up till now, the only option there has been that this operates as a hotel, and that is the top priority. But having said that, there are other options on how to deal with this prime real estate in the heart of downtown Cincinnati that I'm sure are going to be vetted and those options shared on or before January 10th at a minimum.
We promise.
You bet. All right. Thank you very much.
Madam President, I have a question. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said the $1.3 million is earnest money, is to explore options. Is that what you just said?
It is a payment to the seller that then keeps control, keeps the purchase contract alive, which then allows for time to explore options. The
So-
1.3 is not paying for options.
That's what you just said. So I wanted to clarify that because I know earnest money means your commitment to what you're doing. The options may take place after that time when you're doing your due diligence.
There's a different kind of option, we're using the word options as in choices. So the $1.3 million payment will allow time for choices to be made about the project.
But the purpose for the $1.3 million earnest money is for what? To show your
It's-
commitment in the deal?
Well, the purchase and sale agreement that Vanderkar currently holds has due diligence that expires tomorrow.
I'm aware of that.
Right, and so there's only two choices here, to let that expire, and then it's over.
You're not answering my
Okay.
question.
I'm sorry, I don't
On the
understand.
purpose of the $1.3 million earnest money is for us to show our commitment.
Well, it's a contractual obligation.
Sure.
It's a contractual obligation under the purchase and sale agreement.
So you were saying it was to explore options?
By not terminating the purchase and sale agreement, so if you don't want to terminate the purchase and sale agreement, you have to make the contractual
Commitment.
payment, and then that gives you time all the way up until closing to explore choices.
That's what I said
Yeah,
also. I said what you just said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, but the absence of making that payment, we have no
Right.
time to explore any other
Right,
option.
right.
They will control the
Sure.
property.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, and I just, to be clear, then on that point, the 1.3 is a contractual agreement that we have to abide by, or everything goes away, and we are back to where we started. And so that is the reason for the action today, is, it does give us options in the future,
Right. It
and
gives-
hopefully, the end
Gives us
result
time to
will be,
evaluate choices, right.
this public-private partnership that we're entering into to create a fantastic, top-flag headquarter hotel right next to the convention center, which will allow us then to expand the convention center, because we know they're tied together, and move that part of the economic development in this region forward. That's the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish here today. All right, any other comments or questions?
No.
No, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to move then that we approve of the resolution authorizing an agreement with the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Absolutely not.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to comments and motions by the commissioners. Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Madam President, I have no comments today. I'll defer to next week.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Portun?
Nothing to bring forward today.
All right, well, I do, so I just have a couple of things. One is that the EMA, Nick Crosley and the EMA they have an annual meeting where they bring in local partners to make sure that they are prepared for either natural emergencies or man-made emergencies. And so he had a good attendance as always, and they broke out into different sessions. So I want to compliment Nick for the work that he continues to do to make sure that we as a region are prepared for any kind of disaster. Also, the Hamilton County Heroin Coalition is hosting a meeting, it's tomorrow, with the delegation, the state delegation. There's been a lot of conversation related to the settlement dollars, if and when they come. Remember, Hamilton County and the city of Cincinnati sued the distributors of opioids because of the devastation that it's caused in our community. And so there has been a lot of activity at the state level related to the governor and the AG and the CCAO. And so we are bringing the delegation in with the Heroin Coalition to make sure we're all on the same page related to those settlement dollars and related to just some of the activity that get them up to speed on what the Heroin Coalition is doing. And so I offer that as an invitation. It's at noon. And I think at 6:10, I think that we will have lunch. I don't think it'll go much more than an hour, but it hopefully will be very informative for ourselves and the delegation. And then lastly, I just want to recognize that Kroger opened their store. We're all, it's one of those things, it's really crowded right now, and there's traffic's terrible, but we love it. So congratulations to Kroger. It's got all kinds of great amenities. It was just packed. It's been packed the past 2 days with everybody going down, and it's been a lot of fun. So congratulations to Kroger. That's all I have. Jeff, I believe you have another by leave?
I do have a by leave. I've got one by leave and one comment. The by leave is budget adjustment number 27. This is $4 million for employee medical costs and $9.6 million for a 27th annual payroll. Both of these we have discussed. I know you received a report from Budget Director Brueggen on this. The purpose of this is to get these matters taken care of and reconciled in the budget, so as we move forward towards the end of the year, we can focus budget adjustments around the departmental operational issues that we have to adjust, as opposed to these, which are kind of perfunctory things that we have to do, medical costs and the 27th payroll. So I know John is here if there's any questions, but the administration does recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
No question.
No, fully understand the need to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I will move that we approve of budget adjustment number 27, $4.1 million for employee medical cost and $9.6 million for a 27th annual payroll.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I did just also want to pass along condolences. We late last week had a member of the county family and staff pass away. Steve Sears. I don't know if any of you knew Steve. Steve was the building manager at the Alms and Depke Job and Family Services building. Steve had been with the county for many years. I got to know Steve first. He was an employee down at, I think, Great American Ballpark or Paul Brown Stadium, one or the other, I can't remember. But when I was with the Solid Waste District, went down to the stadiums, and we were putting in place recycling programs at the stadiums, and Steve was just fantastic to work with in terms of trying to get stuff done and improve service to the community and improve the environment. And he took that attitude with him everywhere he went, and even to he then became an employee at county facilities, became building manager over at Job and Family Services, and just did a great job. He'll be sorely missed from the county. I just wanted to pass along condolences to his family, to his wife and children. So thank you for the time, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, next we have our regular agenda items. The engineers, item is number 1.
We have one resolution. It's the award of a job for the Keller Road Bridge replacement located in Indian Hill. The lowest and best bidder was Ray Bruce Construction Company. Any questions? And maybe we have your approval.
Any questions or comments?
No questions.
Bob, yeah, we've seen a number of bridge closures or roadway projects come forward recently where I know I've received emails from citizens in those areas raising questions about notice as to the projects and alternative routes and things of that nature so that they can prepare for that, be aware of that. Do you know if there's been any engagement with either local civic leadership or those directly affected by this project and the length of time and so on, just to make sure that we're working collaboratively with them and any unique issues that there might be around the importance of this route to the people of Indian Hill, the village of Indian Hill, can have adequate time to prepare for, plus they will have had the full opportunity to interact with your office and Engineer Hubbard about what any of their concerns may be to see if that can help with respect to timing and hours of or weeks or whatever it will be regarding the closure. Has any of that gone on? Because I know I've gotten a number of communications recently on other projects where citizens have expressed concern that they felt like they were caught up unaware, and I'm not saying whether that I'm not saw some testimony this morning about somebody saying, well, was it credible or not credible, and I'm not weighing in opinion-wise as to whether those complaints are credible or not, but just I want to make sure that that dialogue has taken place with your office.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But given the last week when Mr. Hubbard spoke about the issues we had on Hillside and everything like
Right,
that,
right.
I would very much think he's been trying to take care of this as best he can, but we will get
Yep.
back to you.
I would think so. The actual start date of or closure date of the bridge is set to occur when again, Bob?
According to our documents, let me pull it out here. It was in here, I believe. Just bear with me. There it is. According to the notice, supposedly the completion date is supposed to be November 22nd.
Okay. Relatively
So-
quick project by,
But that also, I'll be on all fairness to you, our letter, basically the letting date was supposed to be August 15th, so we've obviously missed that date. So I'm assuming it's be pushed back probably
Okay.
another month or so, but that's, I'm
if
just
you could
going
get
off.
back to us on that and in getting back as to when closure will take place,
Okay,
also answer the question on civic engagement with the community.
fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will move that we approve of item number 1 on our regular agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. All right, we've got items 2 through 5 related to MSD. You are here on item number 5. Do you want, I would prefer that MSD go first and just kind of outline it and then have some comments. Okay, so go ahead and come forward and we'll run through these.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name's Pat Arnett. I'm Deputy Director at MSD, and I'm here to speak on items 2, 3, and 4. Item 2 is a resolution to add approximately $4.14 million to the already approved appropriation of $5.86 that occurred with the 2019 CIP for our programmatic contingency. This will allow us to add to the capital needs throughout the rest of the year for the projects that are ongoing. And I'd be happy to answer questions individually or go through the other two items.
Let's go ahead and go through them.
Okay. Item number 3, that is a request for the Commissioners to authorize appropriation on 7 temporary and 1 permanent easement for a property owner for the Bahama Gardens pump station. The Bahama Gardens pump station is in Mount Airy. neighborhood, and we've reached an impasse with the property owner. I believe it's just one property owner for all of those easements, and this will allow the prosecutor to move forward with appropriation and do their due diligence, and that we can move forward with this project. The item number 4 is a very similar request to the commissioners. It's to authorize appropriation of 4 temporary, 2 permanent, and a channel and an access easement for 2 properties for the CSO 408 and 413 high water dry weather protection projects. Those projects are within the city's Riverside neighborhood. Again, the negotiations have reached an impasse. The difference between item 3 and number 4 is this is a wet weather project that will allow us to have essentially quick take once the prosecutor has completed their due diligence and move forward. Item number 4 also is in a time constraint. We need to complete that by the end of next year, and so to keep on schedule, we need to get construction legislation by prior to March so that we can do some preliminary bat tree removal, and then that will allow the rest of that project to occur. So those are the 3 items that I have
Okay.
to speak on.
Are there any questions or comments on those items?
No questions.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 5.
Mary Lynn Loader, Deputy Director of the Metropolitan Sewer District. Just want to also mention, with regards to number 5, MSD has reviewed the resolution. It was prepared by Hamilton County. We just want to mention that MSD did provide a technical memo to county administration from back in 2017. And with regards to the providing some food for thought, if you will, with regards to an implementation plan for, and as well as policy questions that we have that I think are relevant, and certainly recommended a work group to consider these issues and made recommendations. I also want to mention, with regards to the impervious surface fee resolution that you have, and I could provide that tech memo for the record as well. But we have been working with Hamilton County Regional Planning as well as Greater Cincinnati, Cincinnati Parks and CAGIS to work cooperatively with regards to providing matching funds on a grant that is going to be doing some beneficial tree cover analysis using, flyovers of the county and whatnot. We requested that flyover contract and scope be modified to include impervious surface flyover data, because that's what's lacking in order for us to kind of get in the first stages of the impervious surface fee analysis. So MSD is providing about $130,000 worth of matching funds for that, which will be beneficial for, reducing stormwater within the MSD system, but also with the modification of including the impervious surface analysis will be beneficial for that overall effort as well. And then lastly, with regards to the resolution, I just want to clarify that in the draft resolution, there's some overly broad statements that I just want to alert you to, that with regards to that the MSD only experiences sanitary sewer overflows or combined sewer overflows during rain periods. That's really overly broad and inaccurate. I mean, there are instances that in some cases there could be dry weather overflows. We do not want that to happen. We do what we can to operate and optimize our system so that we don't have dry weather overflows. But there are some instances, and that does happen, when, for example, energy might be lost at a pump station, or we might have grease or root blocks in the sewers and whatnot, or just broken and collapsed sewers that do overflow or do have some leakage during dry weather events. So that's just one statement. We just recommend that perhaps that be addressed, and that with the appropriate detention or other factors that might be on a site, that impervious surface may not be the most critical, but it is certainly something that we support. We recommended and talked with the Rate Affordability Task Force at that time when that came out as a recommendation. So we do support and are looking forward to participating in the effort that is outlined in number 5, and I'll submit that to the record.
Yeah, thank you.
The comments.
Karen Ball.
Good afternoon. Karen Ball, Hamilton County MSD Compliance Coordinator. Having said that, what is in front of you today is a resolution that establishes the county team as the lead, overseeing what next step will be is to create a working group that is mission is to advance the impervious surface fee structure. It will also oversee the work plan that is developed to get to the point where we actually have the opportunity to make a recommendation to you on how to proceed with the impervious surface fee. We anticipate MSD will be a partner in this, but it is, and there are some things going on the Hamilton County stormwater side with the impervious surface layers they already have, so we don't want to have too much duplication of service. We're going to make sure that we coordinate on all of that and keep the cost of implementation of this particular pretty tricky recommendation from the rate task force on path and moving forward with your policy guidance as the lead charge on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Marilyn Wall is here to speak to this issue. Good afternoon.
Thank you. I wanted to speak in favor of these impervious surface fees and the related adjustments that we would expect from sewer fees as a result of this, and encourage the county to try to get this done soon as possible, faster than 9 months. It's been a long time since the Rate Affordability Task Force proposed this. And there are many other cities and counties that have done the similar things, and should be a lot of good examples for the county to follow. We're also hoping to see incentives in this whole process for private property owners to retain stormwater on their property, and also that these fees then lead to both funding and incentives that get stormwater out of the system. It's important for the basement backups to be permanently eliminated by getting stormwater out of the system, and this will be a huge improvement in that, and would help a lot of constituents. And also, it should reduce treatment cost and hopefully ultimately consent decree cost. And we certainly strongly support having fair and equitable sewer rates. And thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Marilyn. And I do want to say that I think we're all familiar with this item that was generated from the Rate Affordability Task Force a number of years ago, and we've been clicking through the list of things that were recommended. There were quite a few recommendations. This one is a big one, and I know it will take some research and a lot of collaboration to make this happen, but I want to reiterate that the incentive piece of this, I too think is really important, because when you think about impervious surface and who the owners of those lots are, it's a lot of churches and schools and nonprofits, in addition to Kroger and some of the private owners in the county and the city, for that matter. And so I want to make sure that there is an incentive offered to try to retain stormwater on these surfaces, as opposed to it running off, and then we have to treat it eventually down the line. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm very excited that the task force is being formed, and look forward to the recommendations. Do we have any time frame or anything like that?
That's what I wanted to mention. We're really hopeful that we can have something back to you within 2 to 3 weeks.
For putting the task force together.
The names of the task force. The task force.
Wow, that's really aggressive.
Yeah, well, we have some folks that have already raised their hands that are covering multiple corners of representation, and I think the Chamber, League of Women Voters, there are some other groups that we've, based on conversations we've had with you, that we're already reaching out to, and I don't think it's going to take long. A lot of folks are eager to get this going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
No questions.
I do. Mrs. Ball, as you've looked over this, the resolution and the other items as well, are there any amendments or changes to the same that, as the county's compliance, MSD compliance coordinator, you feel are necessary to ensure that the policies of the county are implemented through these items, including this resolution, putting forward the working group? I want to make sure that on that, for example, there's absolutely no doubt that such a working group will come into existence, and that everybody's working together on this, and we make it happen, and make it happen in as expedited a timeframe as we can.
So I suspect you're mentioning what Mary Lynn pointed out in terms of the global statement that the overflows do not occur absent rain events. Well, generally the only time that overflows occur are when there are maintenance or failures in mechanical systems, absent rain events. So you could modify it in that way if you wish to, but generally speaking, overflows do not occur unless there is rain pushing more flow through the system than is
Well,
typical.
I am, but I'm also speaking in a broader sense that, and I'm not pitting this on either Pat or Mary Lynn relative to what I'm about to say, but I know that at times the city and the county have not agreed on the impact of policy statements coming from both. I think, though, with the ruling by the Sixth Circuit, there's no doubt as to where policy is set and the relative roles, rights, obligations, et cetera, of the city as well as the county are delineated with great specificity in that opinion. So I guess I'm asking in a broad sense to the effect that it applies to any of these items. Is there any impact of that opinion on the manner in which, or the timing of which, or any of those things that appears so far, or that could be tightened up if it needs to be regarding these items, so that they are in full accordance with what the Sixth Circuit has ruled?
I hope that this resolution does what it needs to do. It establishes the county as the lead on this, and it establishes that there will be a working group created within short order, and that a work plan will be advanced expeditiously, because we really do want to get this going. And the hope is that there will be full cooperation from MSD based on this policy guidance with this resolution.
Okay. I think that answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you. Mary Lynn, anything, or Pat, that you want to add to that question? If I may, Madam President,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
Yeah, the MSD is not in any way, wanting to not cooperate. We will fully cooperate, and I think we have some good experience to offer to the whole effort, and with regards to our rate consultant that works on this issue, they've done it before in the memo that you have now. Columbus has done it, Philadelphia has done it, Washington, D.C. has done it, so we're familiarizing ourselves with that. My point is only to suggest that in the draft resolution, there's some overly broad statements that,
Right.
Are just not accurate, that are inaccurate, and, I want you to be aware of what those are, and you can choose
And
to make
thank you for raising
modifications.
that issue.
Yeah, and so with regards to, roots in our sewer is not a mechanical issue. It's nature. Roots are going to find their way into things, or grease gets, stuck in pipes, and that causes an overflow. We don't need rain to have that happen.
Right.
So I just want, accurate information to be in front
Thank
of you. So.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much. That answers, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I may, just real quick, as Karen and Mary Lynn had both indicated, this was a recommendation of the Rate Affordability Task Force from years ago. As we talked as administration and and our MSD team about how to move forward with this, I just want to state as a very high level that we absolutely wanted to move forward with this in a way that is inclusive of the participation of MSD and their staff. This is one of those things that we can't be working against each other on. We have to be working in a cooperative way. So while we wanted to make sure, primarily because this involves a matter that, regardless of whether we're talking about 68 agreement issues or whatever, this is a matter that relates to finances and ultimately the rate structure of the sewer district, which is a matter that is squarely in the wheelhouse of the Board of County Commissioners. So we wanted to put this resolution before you just to have the board establish this, but at the same time, this has to be something that the county, the city, and MSD are working collaboratively on. We certainly need the expertise and the staff of MSD along with us as we do this. So I just wanted to provide that high-level context.
Well, I think I will speak for myself. I assumed as much. So, because that's, we need to have MSD at the table in order to enact any of the recommendations that have come forward from the task force. So, I think we all expect that the county and the city will work together with the task force to come up with some smart recommendations for the commission. And this has been on the back burner for a while, so I think we're all anxious to move it to the front burner. So, thank you for your work on this, and thank you all for your willingness to collaborate. So with that, I will recommend that we approve of items 2 through 5 on our regular agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we will move to our consent agenda. We have items 6 through 11. Are there any questions or comments on any of these items?
Madam President, I have a question, I guess, for Jeff, for number 8. I have no problem with the resolution, but as it talks about rejecting the bid or the invitation to bid for clerk of court satellite office space, I understand the rejection, but I also think it's great that you were looking for a satellite office space, and it was in Woodlawn, it didn't work. Did we once have one in Forest Park?
There is still a clerk of court's office
Okay.
out in Forest Park. There's a title office out there.
Okay, so our ability to look in other areas, are we still, I see there were a lot of vendors, 564 vendors, so are we still going to?
So
look?
we'll follow up with the clerk's office.
Uh-huh.
This is really at their discretion, and it's their choice as to how they're trying to expand their services and what part of the community. But we will follow up with them to see, now that with the rejection of this bid, where they're going to
Where
go
we're
from
going.
here. So I can
Okay.
get a report back to the board on
Okay,
that.
thank you, I appreciate it. That's all I had, Madam President.
Thank you. Commissioner Fortuny?
Quick question on the budget adjustment, item 6, Jeff. Returning those residual balances, are they specified specifically to any other capital projects that were not recommended for funding in this CIP?
Commissioner, I'm sorry, your question is whether or not the balances are going to other projects, or?
Yes, I'm just trying to get a sense of whether we have, the way this is set up, we have the ability to, as a board, to look at the return of that money and then make policy decisions as to how to apply it for the balance of this year, if we were of the mind to do so.
I believe the vast majority of these are out of the permissive auto tax fund and the road and bridge fund. So I believe all of these are under the county engineer. So there's no capital projects just that are that we're closing out, say, through county facilities or something like that, where we would reallocate it. So, John, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, so
We can talk with the county engineer to see where they're going,
I
where
think
the
your
dollars
answer
are.
is yes, that this is going to open up the door to look at the broad balance of road, bridge repair projects that are on the menu, on the plan, on the books, that we, at the beginning of the year, when we adopted the capital program and the engineer decided how to apply things, we're not funded or funded fully, and there's an opportunity now to look at other road or bridge projects to either increase their amounts because they weren't fully funded, or to move some others up on the list for this year.
I would say yes, and we could work through the county
Yeah.
engineer on that. We
Yeah.
can talk with Engineer Hubbard about that and get a report back to the board on
Great.
the process going forward.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm going to move that we approve of items 6 through 11 on the consent agenda.
Second,
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes?
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes, Madam President?
Yes.
Before we move to the travel item, just one other follow-up question, and this both to Administrator Aludo and probably to you as well, Madam President, and to Bob Heitkamp while he's still here. Just a message to
Almost,
deliver,
Bob.
Bob.
Almost.
Just that as it relates to other road and bridge projects and those funds we just talked about, is it possible that we could get an update at a staff meeting on that list and where we are on things, and so the the board could be fully engaged as well as to not only where we are, but how the return of these funds and the potential for them to be applied to either existing or new bridge projects or highway projects, road projects for the balance of this year can occur.
Sure. Yeah, we're
Can we
happy
do
to
that?
put that on a staff agenda.
Great, thank you.
We'll get, Alex Fatima's here. We're all listening in, so.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move that we approve of the travel item, which is a request for authorization to travel at the county's expense. Engineer has 7 employees going to Mason, Ohio, and the recorder has 1 employee going to Columbus, Ohio.
Second. Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you. Also, before we go into executive session, I want to mention that we will be sending out a memo shortly related to the budget. If you all have budget memos that you're working on, we're going to have a deadline here, and we'll consult with John and Jeff as to how late in the game we can do that. But please know that that date is arriving within the next couple of weeks because we're going to be rolling into the public hearings then come the beginning of October. We'll get the Crow report October 1st, and then the first public hearing is the 3rd, and then another one, and then we have another one here. So I just want to kind of put that on the front burner and on everybody's radar because those budget memos will help guide the work. So if you have something to offer related to the budget, please get it into the budget office as quickly as you can.
Madam President, as it relates to the memo, I will wait for the hearings that we have to conclude my memo.
Okay.
I've been talking to Jeff about concerns. I mean, I can piecemeal it, but I would much rather wait for the input from the hearings in addition to finalize it.
I respect that. Just worrying a little bit about the time frame. But if you have any preliminary thoughts, maybe if you could get those to the budget office, and then I think we'll all be informed by the public hearings as to what the final recommendations might look like. But I'm talking about more high level. If there's anything that you see right now, just put it in a memo to the budget office.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
On that note, I've already verbally articulated sort of what my budget memo would look like. And I had thought we had set today actually as the date, and I was going to ask if you wouldn't mind extending that through the weekend.
We didn't set a
Will do.
For me to get
set
that
a
in.
date.
Yeah,
thanks.
I don't know that we put it in
didn't.
writing, but we will, we have to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we'll get that memo out hopefully by tomorrow. We will extend it, since that would be unfair to ask for it today or tomorrow. But like I said, top level items, policy related items, as soon as you have them, and then obviously there will be others that come out of the public hearings. So.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and we'll get that out soon. All right, so with that, we will, I'm going to move that we go into executive session pursuant to RC Section 121.22 G3 to conduct a conference with an attorney concerning MSD.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fortune?
Yes.
Thank you.